All right,
Good morning.
Yeah.
I'm Pastor Ron Martin Dent. I'm a Lutheran pastor from eastern Montana and came here to Standing Rock mostly to listen and learn about what's happening here and to see for myself, rather than getting the news from the media. I felt a real calling to be here. I'm here because I think it's the right thing to do, and to stand and witness to what the nations are attempting to do. This is amazing place, amazing experience, very powerful, spiritual place. I'm very impressed with the camaraderie, the community that's formed here, with all the different nations coming together. This has never happened. This never happened. Over 200 different tribal groups coming together in one place to stand with and for one another, to protect. This is not a protest. This is to protect the environment, to protect the water. As the signs here say, water is life. And from a Christian perspective, that's important. Water in Scripture is basic. From the beginning of Genesis, where the Spirit's moving over the face of the waters and God creates order out of that chaos. And part of what I think is happening here is continuing that process of bringing order to the chaos in our society and our world. Again, water in Scripture, you have everything from creation to the Israelites getting their freedom from the Egyptians, from passing through the Red Sea, and how the power of the water saved them, rescued them from their slavery, through the actions of God. All the way to Jesus' baptism at the Jordan River, and certainly amongst Christians, the importance of baptism, where the symbolism is literally being drowned and dying to the life of sin and being raised to new life. Water's important. We're 90 some percent water in our own bodies. We can't live without water. I asked one of the people here what this experience meant to them, and she said, well, the land is one thing, but the water is something completely different. You can't survive without the water. They can take our land, but they can't take our water, and because water is life. And so that's a reality. That's a reality. It's more than just a protest against putting a pipeline through. It's raising up the whole importance of the care for the environment and how important that is for all of us. The folks here at Standing Rock have made it very clear they're not just here to protest a pipeline, but to protect the water source for over 11 million people, because if there is a leakage in the pipe, it's not going to stay here. It's going to move downstream, and downstream ends up in the Gulf of Mexico from here. So we're talking a lot of country, a lot of territory. The other reason why I'm here, again from a Christian perspective, is in Scripture the importance of what's called the covenant, God's promises to the people, from God placing Adam and Eve in the garden and saying, protect and be good stewards of this land that I've made, and promising them, a livelihood, a life, giving them God gave us everything we need for life. I think the story of the Garden of Eden is that God gave us everything, but everything wasn't enough. We had to reach for more. And that's what we're experiencing, in our world. Everybody wants more. This whole idea of greed. Enough isn't enough. There's always this need for something more, and so. But God made this promise. I've given you everything you need for life. To Noah, And God, the rainbow, we had a beautiful rainbow after the storm here yesterday, and the rainbow's a sign of God's grace. God says, I'm not going to destroy the world through water. We may do a good job ourselves, but God's not going to do it. That's God's promise. And then, of course, God's promises to the Israelites, what's called the Old Covenant, or to Christians, the Old Covenant, the promise to the Jews, to Abraham, I'm going to make you a great nation, and through you all peoples will be blessed. That's God's promise to Abraham and the Jews. And then through the Jews, the New Testament of Jesus Christ. And all throughout Scripture, God makes promises. As I read the Bible, I see promise after promise after promise after promise. And the record of Scripture is that we have a God who keeps the promises God makes. Well, here we are on land. This is Corps of Engineers land that was taken from the tribe who had a treaty that said this is going to be their land. The history of our nation with the Native American nations is one of continually making and breaking the promises, making and breaking the treaties, making and breaking the covenants. So from a Christian perspective, I think we need to honor the promises that are made. Our whole society, when you think about it, our whole society is based on trust. We can't even operate as a people in a society, in an attitude of an environment of mistrust. And that trust is based on promises, commitments that we make to one another. So this is important. This is important, why we are here, and why it's not just a Standing Rock tribe, but over 200 Native American nations who experiencing their history of broken promises. What we're seeing, I think, is a real movement, beginning of a movement that says, no more. That's my opinion. You'd have to go ask the other people here, but that's my sense, is that no more breaking the promises. You've made these commitments, now you need to keep them, and they're working through the court system to honor those treaties, which according to the Constitution is the highest law. They're even higher than the Constitution, the treaties that are made. So again, from a Christian perspective, you make a promise, you keep it.